Quiet.
Should we begin, Kate?
Cool.
Well, thank you all for being here. Welcome to Spotlight 802 Vermont Brewers panel. We're excited to bring together some of the region's most talented brewers for an engaging discussion about craft, creativity, and community. This event is all about celebrating local brewing excellence and sharing insights from the people behind your favorite brews. A special thank you to our sponsor, Mascoma Bank, for their generous support in making this event possible. Their commitment to community and local businesses helps events like this thrive. I'm going to start off by introducing myself, and then the panel guests will introduce themselves as well. My name is Emma Arian. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Brewers Association. We're a 501c6 nonprofit trade association. We were founded in 1995 to celebrate craft beer, and we do so through education, marketing, and lobbying so that we can still continue the great tradition of craft beer here in Vermont. Kick it off to Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Novine. I'm the contract coordinator for Zero Gravity, facilitating everything contract brewing related. I've been with Zero Gravity for not quite 10 years, but just about.
I'm Jack Tropa. I am the owner and brewer at Weird Window Brewing in South Burlington. We opened Weird Window in July of 2020, and before that I was a brewer at both Otter Creek and Frost.
Chris Kessler from Black Flannel Brewing. I'm the founder. We are a brewery and a distillery and a full-service restaurant. We also opened in July of 2020. Really challenging time to open, but we both made it, so that's great. Yeah, that's me.
Great. So first we'll start by saying, what is Vermont beer to you?
Vermont beer to me is, I guess, community. It's, you know, bringing people together. It's a higher level of craft.
Excellent answers. What about you, Jack?
Can I just say same?
No, you have to give 2 words.
I mean, well, I would, agree with Anna on community. I think that we have a very strong community of brewers here in Vermont. I mean, we're have the most breweries per capita of any state in the country, and most of us are friends. Most of us like each other. So there. Most some days. So like definitely community and tradition with like the innovation that has gotten Vermont to the forefront of craft brewing and continues to do so.
Quality. I mean, it's hands down. If you're a brewer in Vermont, you need to bring your A game. Otherwise you're kind of in trouble. A lot of people consider Vermont beer to be the craft, the Napa Valley of craft beer, if you will. And I think the community aspect, not only the community of brewers, but also being supported by and supporting our local communities is also really, it all works together very well. And I think Vermont brewers have figured that out very well. Also a distillery and a restaurant, you don't see the same level of camaraderie between distillers or chefs, but brewers really are a tight-knit community. As a lot of people say, can I swear in here? No. So brewing is 99% asshole-free. Is what the term is. And I think we have run into the 1% here and there, but for the most part, it's really, really a great community of people.
Nice. Jack, you'll get the first answer on this one, so you can't say same.
Okay.
How do you think Vermont's landscape, culture, or community shapes the beer you personally brew?
Well, I think kind of what Chris was saying with like quality and tradition of Vermont brewing. You need to make high quality beer, and because there's so many other great breweries that if you're not making good beer, then no one's gonna drink your beer. And in terms of Vermont tradition, if you don't have most of us, if we don't have an IPA, people aren't gonna come to the brewery. So you need to have an IPA. You need to have that kind of nod to Vermont tradition,
your lineup.
Nice. What about you, Anna?
I would agree. I mean, going off of the quality aspect, I think there's an expectation of higher quality, as previously mentioned, and I don't think that other states have that same expectation from even just, everyday customers, not just brewers expecting greatness out of each other. I think our customers expect greatness out of us as well.
You, Chris?
A couple of beer styles have been, I guess, pioneered in the state, like the hazy IPA, some people call it the New England IPA or the Vermont IPA. And you see that brewed in all around the world now. I went to Germany a few years ago and saw a Vermont IPA in Germany, so which is kind of interesting because we're inspired by other beer cultures, but we have now in turn inspired other beer cultures, which is really interesting. A lot of Rick Rubin, who's a music producer, says he can't play an instrument, but he's produced some of the most iconic music out there, and he said I have been successful because I have produced the music that I like to listen to. I don't try to figure out what the market wants. I produce what I like to listen to. Same thing with beer. We as brewers produce the styles that we like to drink. And so we see other pro brewers coming to our tap room, enjoying the craft beer because it's quality, it's a classic style, it's well brewed, it's very, very well balanced. And so that kind of shapes, the styles of beer that we do produce. We brew what we like to drink, and we make it good, and the community follows that trajectory with us.
Great. Moving on to collaborations. Vermont, obviously, as you guys have said, has a really strong sense of community. How does that translate into brewery collaborations, whether that's with another brewery or with a supplier or a farmer? Chris, you can go first since you keep getting the short end of the straw. How does that translate into your brewing style and your brewery?
Yeah. So I think, just the spirit, as we've talked about, the community of brewers, the collaborations that we've done with other breweries. We've done, I think, more than one with Jack now. And it's a lot of fun getting together, picking ingredients, picking the beer style that you want to produce, producing a label for it and getting it out to distribution. It's just an interesting aspect of what we do as craft brewers, and people really like to see those collaborations. Hey, this is a great craft brewery. I think we did one early on with Zero Gravity as well. Zero Gravity and this new startup, Black Flannel, I wonder what they're about. So it's kind of an introduction for us out there. It's like, well, this is a really good quality craft brewery, Zero Gravity, this new startup. So there must be something interesting. Let's see what they did. And then they start following us and like, oh, they're doing something interesting now too. So.
Anna, do you want to speak about collaborations on the contract brewing side of it and what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly really fun to talk to other brewers. I mean, one of my favorite things about the industry is, like Jack was saying earlier, genuinely being friends with everybody and getting to learn from other people. And my position in particular means that I have to talk to other brewers all the time and seeing bits and pieces of their recipes and trying to talk to them about why they did X, Y, or Z. I've learned a lot just from doing that, and I know that they've learned a lot from me in return. And on top of just being a very tight-knit community, it's very similar to borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbor. I love that brewers have no problem calling each other up. Hey, my shipment of grain didn't come in, can I borrow a bag? Like, that happens all the time.
Awesome. And Jack, for you, outside of brewery to brewery collaborations, I feel like as a smaller brewer, you collaborate a lot about keg washing and sharing those kinds of resources. If it's a canning day, working with somebody else's facility. Do you want to talk a bit about that and how that comes to be?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of like what Chris and Anna said, just the community, like other small breweries that might not have a keg washer or something like that. Tomorrow actually Jesse from Lucy House should kind of go clean kegs at my brewery because he can clean 20 of them in an hour rather than, I think that'd take him about 8 hours at his brewery. So it's like, hey, can I come over and do this? Because if I'm not using it, I might as well share what he has. I've had other brewers help me on a canning day if I'm short short somebody can't come help pack out a can on the canning day, Terry from Pro Pig has showed up and helped me put cans in cases. You know, so like the fact that we're all, you know, we're all friends and help each other out when we need, like Anna said, you know, borrowing a cup of sugar. Both Black Flannel and I and Chris and Dan was like, hey, I need a bag of this, I need a bag of that, and out of yeast. You know, just run over and grab it, and then the next time it shows up in your shipment, you just bring it back with a 4-pack of beer as a thank you, and there you go.
Awesome. So while everyone is a competitor, they're all best friends, it seems like, which is great. So as your brewery grows, how do you stay true to your original mission or craft ethos? We'll start with Anna on that one.
I mean, I think zero gravity has always been very, as we keep harping on, community driven. You know, we've always done the Green State for Good, so $1 of every sales for a Green State goes to each month's, you know, beneficiary of the month, and they rotate through all sorts of different things, from the Humane Society to certain, you know, nature conservation projects, and that's, I mean, in all my 10-ish years of being at Zero Gravity, that's always been a thing. So keeping community driven and community focused in that sense.
What about you, Chris?
I think as we've grown, this quality, keeping the quality first and foremost, and we've talked about, you know, what happens as our Pilsner has actually surpassed our IPA in distribution, you know, as far as sales go. And so at some point, you know, we want to be able to continue to produce a wide range of beers in our own facility, but we're limited. We're a 15-barrel brewery. So at some point, if we outgrow that, we may need to do contract brewing with somebody like Zero Gravity. So we would be concerned about, okay, you know, go over, work with Anna and her crew to make sure that, you know, it's they're using similar methods and the outcome is similar in quality to what we're producing now. So just, yeah, quality. But then, you know, the community aspect, creating an engaging experience. And, you know, we feel like we found a niche within, you know, within Essex. You know, there wasn't really anything there that did what we did. You know, the full service restaurant. There was another small brewery, but, you know, it was different from our vision. So we wanted to really create a space, a community space where people could come together, enjoy craft beer, some good food, good conversation. We have no TVs, and we even considered, you know, confiscating phones at the door, and you'll get it when you leave again, because we want you to interact with each other and enjoy the beer and the food. But we didn't quite go that far.
And you wouldn't get pictures for social media?
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Marketing first, come on.
No, I really did. But anyway.
And Jack, what about you? How do you stay true to your original mission?
I mean, I think, like, you know, Chris said, quality over everything. You know, trying to, as, you know, 5 years in now, we're distributing more and, you know, trying to produce more beer every year, but still staying true to
similar to
producing an array of beers. You know, we have our beers we put in cans, but then also having, you know, other beers that are draft only that we can get in the tap room that aren't, you know, an IPA or a lager. You know, there's something different. So when people come in, they're not just getting the same 4 beers they could get down at the bevy. You know, something that, you know, I'm so trying to figure out how to still produce beers that are going after distribution and keeping beers on the shelves while also keeping, you know, interesting, cool beers at the brewery to get people to come into the brewery.
And so that you could have fun brewing your
Right,
beers.
well,
Yeah.
Like Chris said, brew the beers I want to drink.
What compromises, if any, have you had while you scale up? Start with Anna. You could talk about Bartlett Bay. An idea.
Yeah, I mean, we took over the old Magic Hat facility, which came with a lot of things that we didn't anticipate. But it's been a really interesting circle for a number of the Zero Gravity folks, because most of them started at Magic Hat. So there is a sense of coming home for them. So that has been interesting. And there's a lot of quirks to that system. And so I think that, sometimes you're given the hand that you're dealt and you do the best with it of what you can.
Nice. What about you, Chris?
There is no compromise, at least right now for us. We haven't gotten to the point where we can buy a magic hat plant, but I don't expect we'll ever get there because we designed our experience to be, everything that we're producing is done right there in Essex. It's kind of nice that our distribution is growing throughout the state, so that's sort of a different problem from what we anticipated initially. But yeah, if as we grow, we just want to make sure that we don't compromise on anything in terms of the quality or the styles of beer that we're producing. So.
And how do you maintain that quality and authenticity?
A couple of different ways. Of course, we do a lot of testing to make sure that, for example, we have equipment in the brewery. We keep the oxygen levels low, so once you infuse oxygen with the wort coming out of the brew house and going into the fermenter, that's the last time oxygen can touch the beer until it comes out of the tap of the can. So there's lots of places in the process where oxygen can be introduced, and so we make sure that we have quality standards all through the brewing and the packaging process. And then we also have a quality program, we call it the flannel panel, which are tasters. So they're professional tasters, and they're just people in the community. So we have a membership program, and we invite all the members and other people that we know who aren't members to come in, and we'll have every other week or two, we have a little assignment for them to do. It's like, taste this, and are these two beers different? Or, can you taste any off flavors or anything like that? So it helps give us feedback, and one of the main questions we ask is, do you like this beer? Would you buy more than one pint of it? And so, yeah, so just getting feedback and engaging the community with that flannel panel, quality panel, and then lab testing.
How does one get on it?
You're on it.
You gotta know somebody.
Just raise your hand.
Awesome. Moving on to the future of Vermont breweries, Jack, what trends do you see shaping the next 5 to 10 years of Vermont brewing?
Whether I think or hope, I guess are two different things. But what we've seen in the brewery in the past year and a half is kind of what the rest of the industry is seeing. People preferring lower ABV, lighter beers that you can have more than one of, that aren't going to just kind of blow your palate out and not be able to drink more than one or taste more than one. And I'm hoping that Vermont has been great with like the New England IPA, hazy IPA thing for a long time, but I'm hopeful that the pendulum kind of starts swinging back towards lagers and lighter beers, because for a while, people that thought IPA was just bitter and we're drinking IPAs and then everybody's drinking IPAs, and there's so many great different styles of lagers other than Bud Light and Blue Light. So having that pendulum kind of come back and have lagers make a resurgence in the market is, I guess, what I hope, because I like to brew them and drink them. So that's my own opinion. But
and what about you, Anna?
I second that. Lower ABV beers, even so much as going for NA beers. I think the motto going forward for a while will be diversify or die. But also I'm excited to see that lagers making a resurgence.
And Chris, you have lots of diversity over there. You're doing ready-to-drink cocktails and distilled spirits, so if you want to talk a bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, we started off with that idea of we need to there's certainly a lot of craft breweries out there, a lot of IPAs. We didn't go into it wanting to compete with a new IPA. We actually designed ours to be a little lower ABV than say your Heady Coppers, your Sip of Sunshine. So our Disco Montage is our flagship New England IPA. It's 6.5%. Still a little higher than a lot of the other stuff we produce because we have been lager heavy since we opened. So much so that we actually started a new beer festival last year called Lagerfest. And And so we invited breweries from not only Vermont, but from outside the state. So we had some from all over New England. We had a couple of German breweries as well. And we plan to do that again this year, June 13th, and expand that a little bit. It's right there in Essex on the green in front of our brewery. So yeah, I think it's just, you know, in addition to the lagers that we brew, which you know, we wanted that to be part of the experience, be able to have a couple of pints with some great food, be able to carry on a conversation and drive home afterwards, and it's safe. But with the distillery, of course, that's different entirely because it's high proof alcohol, right? But we are one of the only true small batch craft distillers in Vermont. You know, we've produced 20 different styles of spirits, so 3 different whiskeys. We have agave spirit, which is like tequila. We have London dry gin and old style Dutch gin, which is called Jenever. So we have barrel aged, unaged. So these are all great, you know, they're for making cocktails. And then when we got the laws changed in 2022, so that we could just distribute anywhere beer was distributed, because it's a low ABV product, we started making canned cocktails. So we have 4 varieties now. We're coming out with another one in June. And so those have been growing like gangbusters. I mean, I think we were up 35% year over year on those. So that one's really growing. Our beer was actually on growth last year because we kind of entered the market later than a lot of other larger breweries, so we're still able to grow slow and steady, which is great. And our spirits, same thing, growing against the trends that all categories are growing right now, because people are just learning more about the fact that we're a distillery as well as brewery. And they see it, they taste it, like, wow, that's really good. I'm going to get a bottle and, you know, make a great margarita with this. So.
Nice. And you brought some ready-to-drink cocktails to sample, right?
Yeah, brought 4 different styles of beer and 3 different canned cocktails. If you'd like to try a little sample after this, we'll do it.
Nice. Anna, for you, how are you guys preparing for changes in consumer preferences, like non-alcoholic beers? And how are you guys fitting into the marketplace and making any changes?
Well, Zero Gravity has certainly been on the forefront of that, starting with Rescue Club, which was our non-alcoholic line. We had a Pilsner and an IPA. We did an Oktoberfest non-alcoholic beer as well. That brand has since been discontinued, and we've started another non-alcoholic line, Green State Zero and Conehead Zero, just keeping things within a brand family.
And you're seeing that grow in the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, we just released it, it just got released not that long ago, like maybe 2 months ago. But we also have the hopped seltzer, 2 different flavors there, so again, diversifying.
Mm-hmm. Jack, you can start on this one, but what role do sustainability and environmental practices play in your future plans?
Well, I don't know about future plans, but I can talk about what we do now. I mean, you know, sustainability is big in Vermont, you know, being green, like, so I know a lot of other breweries do the similar things. All of our spent grain goes to farmers. You know, we have the farm that picks ours up, this Vermont Wagyu, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
Do
So,
you get
you
free
know,
Wagyu?
sometimes. So, you know, all of our spent grain, as much like organic matter out of the tanks as we can, you know, goes into those totes and then gets fed to the cows, so it doesn't go down the drain and end up in the South Arlington sewer and everything like that. You know, and trying to, you know, use, I mean, beer takes water. You have to use water to make beer. But, you know, trying to figure out places where you can cut back on your water usage. Like, well, all of our water that we use to chill the beer coming out of the tank goes back into the hot water tank to then be brewed or cleaned with, and, you know, flow meters everywhere, so you're not just running water into a tank for cleaning. You have a, you know, set gallons for X amount of chemical, and so you're trying not to just waste the resources that we have.
You, Chris?
Yeah, you mind if I answer 2 questions at once?
Go for it.
Back to the NA stuff. Well, we get that question a lot of times. Do you ever plan to do an NA beer? there's so many good ones out there. Like in our bar, we serve the Green State Zero and the Conehead Zero right now. When people want a nice NA beer, so we don't ever plan to produce an NA beer, but we do. We've talked about maybe like a really low ABV beer, like a German light beer. We do a smoke, which is a Pivo Gorzicka, which is a 3.3% beer. Oak smoked. It's got a really nice character. Jack always likes to come over and drink that when we have it. So yeah. But we've talked a little bit about getting into mocktails, so canned mocktails. So that might be something we'll look into at some point. As far as the sustainability goes, we opened. We worked early on with Efficiency Vermont to find out where we can. Brewing is a very resource intensive manufacturing activity. So where are the areas within manufacturing that we can save resources, save energy, and so working with them, we do a lot of what Jack talks about, as far as spent grain goes to a pig farmer, they pick it up every brew session. We pitch yeast, so no solids go down the drain. We work with the local wastewater systems to say what are the best practices. We've talked to state officials prior to opening. So we don't put anything solid down the drain. It's only cleaning water that goes down the drain. So we collect all of the solids into totes that we put outside, and then a tanker comes once a month, picks that up and brings it to a biodigester. So it generates electricity, I think, in the Northeast region. All of our grain bags we bring to, I think it's the Georgia Solid Waste District. Then they use it for like composite decking and other types of, so it's all recycled. And so I think when working with Efficiency Vermont, I don't know the full statistics, but when we opened, we were one of the greenest breweries and restaurants in the state. I think we're still there.
Yeah, you just got a Better Bev recognition.
Which one? What's that?
It's called Better Bev,
Okay.
and you guys just got it.
Oh.
Congratulations.
I may have been aware of that, but
It's on Dan's plate.
okay, gotcha. Yeah. So Dan is our head brewer, and he's actually really big into sustainability, and he and I really shared that ethos, before we opened. And anything we can do, he's very environmentally conscious. We both have electric vehicles now, and so but he's asked to speak at state and national conferences all the time, actually with Efficiency Vermont, to talk about sustainability in brewing operations. So yeah, it's a big part of what we do. We wanted to get a CO2 reclamation system before we opened, but because we were opening during COVID, we had to divert some of our budget to open outdoor spaces, so we couldn't do that. We would have been the first brewery in the state to have one, but the operations beat us to it. We actually were close to pulling a trigger this last year, but the tariffs hit and the prices went way out of control, so we couldn't pull the trigger then, because it's a Dutch company that we found that was a really great product. And what that is basically when you're fermenting, it produces CO2 that just goes into the atmosphere, and then the CO2 reclamation system will allow you to basically capture that CO2, and you can reuse it in the beer itself. We would produce more than we would use, so we're down the plaza, I guess, from Magic Man. They produce cannabis, so we would share some of that CO2 with them to help them grow their plants.
It goes back to collaborations again.
That's right, collaborations not only with brewers, but with other businesses locally.
Anna, do you want to speak a bit on zero gravity sustainability initiatives?
Yeah, I don't know how much we have in the plans for future things. Retrofitting a lot of sustainability practices can sometimes be a bit cost prohibitive. But we similarly divert spent grain. We have a farmer that comes and picks it up. Magic Hat also had a deal with a biodigester that's right in the same parking lot, and we've honored and kept that program going with we call it the Bartlett Bay facility. So diverting wastewater to turn into energy. And then I know our Pine Street facility does a lot with trying to recycle CO2 as much as possible, so trying not to just dump it to the floor, as it's a pretty standard practice, but trying to avoid that as much as possible. Using all sorts of equipment to measure CO2 so that you're not overusing any.
Great. do a quick fire round of questions before we get to audience Q&A. We'll start with you, Jack. What advice would you give to someone starting a brewery today? And don't say don't.
Okay. I think, kind of similar to what we've touched on before, is good or even great beer doesn't cut it anymore. You need to have something else that's going to bring people into the brewery, whether it's music, food, games, whatever. Like, you need to kind of have that other piece to have people come in, and unfortunately it took us about 4.5 years to learn that lesson, but we now have pizza, and it's been great, having more people into the brewery now that we have more food than just kind of light snacks. But yeah, I guess that would be my second piece of advice, would be the finding a niche or something that can get people in, because with not only in Vermont but all over the country, with all of the craft brewery explosions happening, people expect good beer at this point. You can't just have good beer and expect people to show up banging down your door.
What would you say, Chris?
Entirely agree. Yeah, I would have said a lot of what Jack said. Created a great experience. The other thing I think is budget for it. You figure out the highest number that you can. I want to have this many tanks, then the brew house, this and that. And
Double it.
no, triple the quadruple. Initially I thought I could get away with okay, 500,000 for it. No, quadruple that. So if you want it depends on what you're creating, but. Yeah, we went kind of big, so.
I would also advise not to open in the middle of a global pandemic. That would be the number one piece of advice, I think.
What about you, Anna?
Yeah, I mean, agree with everything these guys have said. Dig deep, be prepared to wear many hats. I'm sure, as these guys can attest, they've probably done it all, from plumbers to dishwashing to
Lobbyists.
Yeah, lobbyists to brewing to being their own accountant. Be prepared to do it all, and know that once you get into it, you're in it for the long haul, and don't expect much of a return for quite some time.
Last question from me. Chris, what's the beer that made you fall in love with brewing?
Actually, I was a craft beer fanboy before I started home brewing, before I opened a brewery. So I think Sierra Nevada Pale Ale was, it just sort of, I used to go to the Vermont Public Brewery, so there was a lot, the Smoke Porter and the ESB, the Dog Light Bitter I was a big fan of those. But then I kind of started getting into wine for a while, and then when I picked up I think it was a Christmas party, and they were serving Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, holy crap. And that's when it just sort of took off from there.
What about you, Jack?
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale in college. Although also, second to that was, I can remember a couple times in college, I had a friend who was from Vermont, and he would bring back kegs before they were canning of Switchback in college, and we had drilled out a refrigerator with CO2 and everything, and drinking that at college, it was this is, I like my Coors Light PBR, but this is better.
I think mine would have been Shed Mountain Ale.
Well, thank you all so much. We're going to turn it over to the audience. Great.
Where are you all located?
Zero Gravity is on Pine Street, right in Burlington.
But operations, other operating facilities?
Yeah, so the Pine Street facility is the original, pseudo-original production facility for Zero Gravity. They originally actually started in American Flatbread, right in downtown, but our much larger production facility is down Route 7 where the old Magic Hat used to be.
Okay.
I am in South Burlington, down behind the airport, Ethan Allen Drive. Do you know where Oh My Dog is? Twisted Wrench, down that road.
And that's the entire.
Entire facility, tap room, brewery, all right there.
For us, it's, you know where the old Essex outlets are in Essex? We're in one of the old outlet stores. If you come out of the Hannaford, you're looking right at Black Flannel. So that's where our brewery, restaurant, we have a barrel room where we do barrel aging, but also events, and then we have a distillery, both a tasting room and a production facility, all right there. So we have 12,500 square feet indoor, another 7,500 square feet outdoor space there.
Thank you.
Hi there, thank you so much. Please forgive my ignorance. What happened to Magic Hat, and is there a cautionary tale behind that closure?
So Magic Hat still technically exists. They are owned by Genesee. Well, they're brewing out of Genesee, but the parent company I think is Fifeco. Maybe. I don't. It's some big conglomerate that owns a number of breweries, but they do still get brewed. I think they are only brewing Magic Hat number 9. I think that's it though.
Thank you.
Hey, hi. I was just curious, you guys had mentioned earlier about swapping ingredients back and forth. Does it really throw your product off by switching, or if you had to borrow different things from each brewery? Anything differently in the yeast versus anything else?
I mean, I think for the reason I would go to Chris and is it, hey, do you have any two-row, base grain, something like that? It's not necessarily specialty grain, but even if it is, if I'm like, hey, Chris, do you have this grain? And Chris doesn't have, he's like, oh, this is similar. I may or may not take it depending on how much I need and what I'm looking for out of the grain. And if, I'm looking for a certain type of yeast and Chris only has another type of yeast, I'm probably not going to take that yeast. I'm going to have to figure out how to rearrange my brew schedule to get the yeast that I need.
There's usually a pretty good, what is it called? Like a phone tree. So if Chris doesn't have what Jack needs, we all know each other enough to send out multiple texts to say, hey, I'm looking for this specific yeast or this specific item, who's got me?
But you can pretty much always say you can get it somewhere within, until you get it from your suppliers.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Chris and Emma, I didn't mean to take your voice by taking your microphone. If you have anything to add, please feel free.
I'm not a brewer, so it's all
For the borrowing ingredients, we actually, yeast is a little tricky, but we've actually borrowed yeast from Zero Gravity before when the yeast supply didn't show up. It got caught over the border or something if it was coming from Canada, for example. But they were using a similar yeast for one of their beers, a lager, and we were like, that actually works. It's basically the same yeast, and we were able to use that. And there was once where we actually had gone through the brew session, and our brewer didn't realize they didn't have the yeast. Went in the cooler, it's not there. Called around, got the yeast, and saved the beer. So.
Cool, thank you.
How's it going? I don't even know. I'll just shout over it. So, as places like Vermont Beer Shepherd, Calmont, and other distributors are starting to kind of go under or get bought out, do you guys see that limiting the market at all when it comes to, these distribution centers are only going to carry the most popular beers, and now Vermont ends up being known for, no offense, just Zero Gravity, just Lawson's, just Heavy, where before we really had to push for the microbreweries to get distribution. And then I guess, do you guys see any sort of collaborative, do you guys see any sort of more collaborative effort for distribution or self-distribution going forward?
I can answer that one. So the Vermont Brewers Association does a lot of lobbying, and this year we have a proactive bill for self-distribution.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, if you are a manufacturer and you want your product out in the market, you either sign with a distributor or you create your own distribution company. You pay a fee of $1,200. It's a totally separate set of books, insurance, employees, the whole thing. It's an insane hassle for a small brewery to do that. So we're asking that under your malt manufacturing license, which is how you make beer, that you could self-distribute up to 5,000 barrels a year. You wouldn't have to create a separate company. So we see that as helping small breweries. Doesn't mean that they're going to get into the Market 32s and the Hannafords through self-distribution, but it means they can get their beer onto the shelves of people that want to support craft beer in Vermont.
I was actually, we actually did that whole thing back in 2020 where we started the other company and grew the distribution to the point where we sold it off to Farrell Distributing. So we were lucky enough to pick a distributor that, I mean, they're great people at Farrell, and we've worked really well with them. But you know, if we had gone, say, with Vermont Beer Shepherd or Craft Beer Guild at the time, they wound up being either going out of business or were absorbed by another distributor. Calmont most recently is closing as of March 12th. So we're down to two large distributors in the state and one that has 3 brands, and actually Jack's with Vermont Wine Merchants now. So was previous with the Vermont Beer Shepherd, and I'm not going to hand the microphone to him because he gets wound up about this. No, but it was a tough situation. So we just were fortunate that the timing worked out, that we were able to sell our distribution rights over to Farrell, and then not get caught in that. We were close to going with Vermont Beer Shepherd, and thank God we didn't. So.
Yeah. To answer your question, yes, it is a problem, and yes, we're working on it.
Yeah. It's a good solution, I think.
Agreed.
Thank you for doing this today. I find this very interesting. I have 2 questions. First, with Weird Window, can you tell us how you came up with your logo and what's behind that window?
Yes. So I'm not from Vermont, neither is my wife. So when we moved here, we would drive, to Stowe, Sugar Bush, and see the crooked windows on the old farmhouses, and we didn't know what they were called. We called them the weird windows because they looked funny. And then we were looking for a name for the brewery and talking to our friends, and one of our friends suggested Witch's Window Brewing, and we're like, what's a witch's window? It's like, they're the crooked windows, and it's like, oh my God, the weird windows. So we went with Weird Window instead of Witch's Window, so that we didn't have to have a haunted house themed brewery. And come to find out that the Witch's Window, their Weird Window or coffin windows, are pretty much only found in Vermont. It's some unique Vermont architecture. You'll find some in like upstate New York and Maine and Massachusetts on the borders of Vermont, but most of them are in Vermont for whatever reason.
That's great. It's a good story. And my next question is advice. So I really enjoy like you said, the IPAs, but I also like the lagers. But I'm looking for something that's in the middle, like the flavor of the hops from the IPAs, but not too light like some of the lagers are. What would each of you from your brewery recommend for a beer that would be kind of like that middle of the road?
That's a good question. We do have, it's a pale ale, technically, Woodchuck. It's one of the juice lines that Zero Gravity has been doing. Woodchuck, buck, duck, woodchuck. And it's a low ABV pale ale, so you still get the body that you're looking for from an IPA, but the low ABV that you like from a lager. I think it comes in at like 5%.
I'd say for us, it's the same thing. It's a pale ale. It's called Townhouse. It's 4.5%. So there's hops in it, but it's not dry hop. All the hops are in the kettle. So you get the hop flavor and like the juiciness in the body, but it's a lower ABV and it's not that like super punch in your face hop flavor.
Big into lagers, obviously. There's German Pilsner style, you've got the Czech pale lagers, but then I think one that would fit the bill for your description would be an Italian Pilsner. So we have one called, I'm forgetting the name of it, Birra di Oro. And so we almost called it spaghetti western. But anyway, no, it's a seasonal. We just brewed it. It's going to be out soon. But I think that would be. It's almost like a German lager, but it's dry hop like an IPA. So you get a lot of noble hop flavor and aroma with that. So
Thank you.
Circe's window too.
Yeah, so this is gonna-
Easily enough.
I've noticed in the last few years that the non-alcoholic beers sort of take shape in a good way. And used to travel in Europe and find really interesting non-alcoholic beers. And you come back to the States and you could barely get it down. It was so bad. And yet, I think Zero Gravity and some others are doing some interesting stuff. Can you tell the story on non-alcoholic beers, and are there real limits in terms of the quality you can produce?
Let's see. Well, I guess there's a lot of different processes to make non-alcoholic beer with all varying results. Rescue Club, one of the hurdles we used to have with that, from the process that we were putting the beer through, left the body not what we wanted. And there's a lot of engineering that has come a long way that has now since led to the Conehead Zero and the Green State Zero. So I just think that innovation as far as being able to make non-alcoholic beer without beating it up too much has come a long way in the last couple of years.
I think other than like Rescue Club, if I'm correct on this, used the same machine like a kombucha to remove the alcohol, so it separates the alcohol from the beer.
Yeah.
I think the result was really good for Rescue Club, the IPA and the Pilsner. We served it a lot. There was somebody years ago that came to me and was trying to do the similar. He brought me similar products and it's like, these are really good. You should try these. And it was an IPA and it was brown. Like, that's oxidized. And I can tell just by looking at it. So I tasted it and it was like pure cardboard. Like, so here's the problem, and I explained it to him. But I think there's also breweries, and there's one in Maine that's producing one with just a certain type of yeast. I don't know technically what it's using.
It's a maltose negative yeast. So it's a yeast that digests sugar without the byproduct of alcohol.
Yeah, so it does lower the sweetness, but you still have more residual sweetness in those beers than you would have from most beers. They're not as dry.
Yeah, and the machine that Chris is referring to is great for kombucha. The wine industry uses it a lot to standardize ABV, but unfortunately for beer, it tends to beat it up quite a bit. And it moves really, really slow. It would take us about 2 weeks to process 60 barrels of beer. Yeah. It was wild. It was a really, really cool machine. And it had the capability of doing all sorts of fun things beyond what we were using it for. They use it in essential oils like that industry. They use it to extract flavor from fruit products and other botanicals. It's an incredibly cool machine, and it makes you feel like you're working at Willy Wonka's factory. But yeah.
Just want to make sure everyone has been able to ask their question if they have a question.
Questions?
How do you wash a keg
Very carefully.
Yeah. You hook it up to a machine, push a button. So it was. How mine works. It's a keg washing machine. It's got two heads on it, like you would use to tap a keg, but instead of air going in or product coming out the stem, you have product going in the stem and then product going out of the what would be air. You flip it over on a rack, and you have two chemicals. One's caustic, one's sanitizer, and then it has its own pump and timing system, and it shoots the cleaning chemical off the stem, and it cleans the keg, and then it sucks it out and reuses the chemical, and then rinses it, and then uses the sanitizer, and then purges the keg with CO2, and then you have a clean keg.
Wow. I'm glad I asked. Chris, where are your canned cocktails found?
We have them at the brewery, and the distillery and the brewery, but they're distributed statewide. So you can find them at Healthy Living. We actually sell a lot here with both locations in South Burlington and Williston. But yeah, most, I think, the Beverage Warehouse, so a lot of retail stores in the region area.
We have a brewery.
Oh yeah, Jack serves them.
Thank you.
What happened to Little Wolf?
RIP. It is a brand that we discontinued.
Oh, I think you guys should totally bring it back. She said hail, or you
Yeah.
guys were talking about it. That's always the first one I would go to, is people that didn't want something too hoppy. Yeah, bring Little Wolf back.
There have been talks of, celebrity shifting it, so to speak. But yeah, it just was a brand that didn't sell well for us, so unfortunately. But yeah, a lot of us were quite sad about it.
I think my question would be along those lines. Is there a beer that everybody says you guys should bring back, but you just don't for some reason?
I mean, for us, it's Little Wolf. I don't know.
No, Frankie.
Oh yeah, we do get Frankie a lot. That was an interesting beer. It's technically a fruited lager, but legally you can't say that. You can't put fruited lager on a label, so the label technically said fruited ale, but it was just a fruity beer, and again, it just was something that didn't sell particularly well for us.
I don't know. There's a few that I do only kind of once a year that people ask for. They ask me to do it more than that. The one that I've gotten surprisingly a lot from people that have been coming to the brewery since the day we opened was one of the first beers, actually the first beer I ever brewed on my system. And it was a disaster from start to finish. I just, because it was a new system and I was kind of learning it, it was, it just wasn't where I wanted it to be. Gravity or anything, and warp going through the chiller was dirty and hoppy, and I was going to dump the beer because I was not happy with how it was in the tank. And Emily was like, well, I mean, you made it, it tastes fine. You might not like it, but other people will. And people still ask for that beer. And at this point, I couldn't make that beer if I tried to. But
What was the name of it?
Scott, I remember my first beer.
Two come to mind. Brown beer, which is a Munich Dunkel, so it's a lager style. It's one of the oldest German lager styles historically. We brewed it for the 2 batches for the first 2 years, and we hadn't done that since. We just put it on tap again tonight, I think tonight, or we are this week. So really good, nice little chocolate finish to it. So I recommend that one because that was bring that one back, and so we did. The other one we haven't done. It's a little harder because it's a barrel-aged sour. It's a brown sour beer that has both sweet and sour cherries, and it was called Foxy Brown. And so yeah, we get a lot of call for that one as well.
You guys are such a competitive industry now in the state, and I'm just wondering how you maintain the collaborative spirit considering that. Does it have to do with like the personalities of people who go into brewing, or is there something else? Like why?
Rising tide raises all ships. That's really what it is, but I think it's people respond to the community aspect of it. They really they come into Black Flannel, you're having dinner, you see the servers enjoying, laughing and enjoying each other's company, and it's wow, it improves the experience. And so I think people they see the collaboration between breweries, and it's like, wow, they're not cutthroat, and very collaborative, and it's like, I want to support this. So I think it just feels right.
Yeah, I mean, agree with Chris. It's personality, and it's also that, it's a competitive industry, but you could give all three of us sitting up here the same grain, the same hops, same recipe, and you'll end up with three different. They might taste similar, but they're going to be very different because of how we brew, the water we're using, what temperature you do the beer at, all sorts of variables. And I feel like I do certain beers and Chris does certain beers better than I do, and stuff like that. So because we all are kind of we're all making beer, but we're all making beer a little bit differently, and it's still high quality, that we all still get along, and rising tide all ships. So
Seconded all of that. I mean, it's just, I think beer historically has always been such a community-driven entity that it never really got corporate in the way that a lot of other industries did. So the competitiveness is different. It's just not the same. And I don't know that you can even call it competition or competitive for that reason.
And it's also kind of, when you're in competition, it's really with yourself, and you have to have a really good, strong business model. So it's like, I'm not trying to outsell Jack or become another Zero Gravity by any means. I've found a community, a spot in my community, local neighborhood tap rooms, when did a lot of research before opening, and there was still a lot of growth in that. People were like, are you crazy opening another brewery in Vermont? Isn't it the bubble going to burst? And yeah, we're seeing now a downturn in all alcohol, really. But there are still pockets in Vermont. If you open a brewery, it's going to do well. If it's run well, if it makes good quality beer, and it's fiscally responsible, then it's going to survive.
Do you know if anybody's going to be moving into the old, any of you guys think about moving into the old Good Water Brewery in Williston?
Yeah, right now I think they're going, the equipment's up for auction. I think Marty had it for sale for a while, just didn't have any takers. But I don't think anybody is going to be moving in there anytime soon.
Yeah, I think if somebody wants to go in there, they need to put in a new wastewater treatment facility, which is expensive.
Yeah.
I think
I heard the landlord didn't even want her to do this, right?
Oh.
I don't know though.
Oh, no, well, someone's moving into some brews, so that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And yeah, we had 4 new breweries open this past year, which is also great. So, despite the headwinds.
Like one in Bellows Falls, they didn't have a brewery, so now they're going to have. They just opened recently. And
Same in Manchester, Vermont. There's Lost Marble there.
So speaking of competition, which one of you guys are going to be the first to open a location here on Market Street?
Gee, what's going on in Market Street?
Events like this all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, we actually, when Simple Roots announced they were closing, you kind of put it out to the, I actually went over, it's like, is this a viable second location for Black Flannel? And it just didn't fit. It didn't feel right for us. And, we're open to looking at other opportunities, other locations. But there are also challenges, with, I guess, legally, can you open another facility, and, you have to have a brewing operation at that facility to serve your beer, that kind of thing. So it's tough. but we're not opposed to looking at that in the future, and this would be, I think, a great spot for it.
I think Zero Gravity has met their quota on that.
Any lingering questions?
Hi, thank you. I heard some time ago that there was some angst over, I believe, like the price of aluminum. I'm curious if that's a significant headwind or if that was kind of a little bit overblown.
I was gonna say, I mean, for us, we get our cans, they're sourced in the United States, so that hasn't been an issue for us. A lot of places have contracts, so it was not as big of a hit as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we're not nearly as big. We buy half pallet of cans. We have a mobile canning company that comes in. And so if you get the cans from them, you're pretty much guaranteed cans. The aluminum shortage a few years ago, they kind of got caught off guard and they stocked up. So the price maybe went up like half a cent in the past year, maybe a cent per can. So it didn't end up being quite the dire situation that we all kind of thought it might be for a few months. But I mean, that's speaking for myself, I don't know about.
Exact same. We were using Ironheart mobile canning for a long time. When we sold the rights to Farrell, we were able to buy our own canning line. So we're able to move it into the brewery. We use it for the beer. We use it for the canned cocktails. The aluminum, we still get blank cans, and we can wrap labels on them. We bought a new labeler at the end of last year. So we started going toward printed cans, which look really nice, but then they're a little more expensive. But now that we have the new labeler, we're going back to all labels, and just being able to buy in bulk with the unprinted and blank cans just makes a lot of sense. And, yeah. We haven't had the issue with supply or price.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. Emma, thank you for moderating. Would you like to close us out?
Sure.
Before the tasting.
Well, thank you guys for joining me. I feel really lucky that I have a job where I get to hang out with friends that are members. So it's super fun to be here with you guys tonight. So I want to shout out that South Burlington Rec is putting on a brew fest on Saturday, May 23rd from 4 to 8 p.m. And the Vermont Brewers Festival is July 17th and 18th this year at Waterfront Park. Tickets will go on sale for that in May. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. We'll be sticking around, drinking some beers afterwards if you have more questions. Thank you.
Maybe that's the same. It might be the same one. That's like a
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Sure. So, but you like
It's me, Mom. Hello. How are you? We have a team, yes.
Hey, Lana. I didn't know you were a craft beer.
Who is it? Oh, yeah, of course. Yes, we're friends with them. Yes, and they got you guys. That's so cute. Yeah, we had a dog. Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I get your email.
That's hilarious.
I don't know why.
It's like,
No, you said nothing. Oh, sorry.
Nick Jingle.
Oh, okay.
Do you know how to stop it?
Out of power.
Or
like,